expressing some sympathy also for the satirists of the world, given that not only has Chris Grayling been given a £100,000 a year job for a few hours' work a month to advising the owners of ports, but as we mentioned earlier, the coronavirus testing centre in Ebbsfleet in Kent is closing in order to become a Farage garage or a lorry park, one of the many that will be needed in the event of a no-deal Brexit. And it is to Kent that we turn next in the company of Chris Yarsley, who's a policy manager for road infrastructure. And I should be honest with you from the start, Chris, I'm going to rely entirely upon your expertise and understanding of this issue. But if I read the headline, you can explain the detail, perhaps. Lorry drivers furious at plans for internal UK border in Kent. What does this mean, and have the headlines exaggerated the reality?
Good morning, James. I'll leave the point on the exaggeration of headline writers aside, but essentially, as we move into the new world, as the EU transition period ends, the government is trying to put in place a programme that will stop essentially what we kind of saw yesterday when Operation Stack was introduced as a result of the increased security checks at Dover.
Yes.
Trying to stop, lines of vehicles and commercial vehicles on the roads of Kent. So what they're doing is they're putting in place a kind of a border readiness portal, which is going by the name of the Smart Freight system. So if you're an exporter, you need to input all your details into this web portal before you begin your journey, or before your transport company begins the journey. And then it will give you a reply back. And if you get a green response, it means you're free to go all the way down. And importantly, you'll be given a Kent access permit. And this is what we described about the sort of an internal border. Vehicles travelling to the continent from anywhere in GB will need this Kent access permit to enter the county of Kent, to use the road network that heads down to the.
But we're not going to be putting up borders or anything like that, are we?
There's going to be no physical infrastructure, no, but there will possibly be the use of the AMPR, the camera system.
Yes.
So if your vehicle is flagged and there is an enforcement control going on, about a mile or two down the road, chances are you'll be pulled off the road. And if you don't have a Kent access permit, the driver will be potentially issued with a £300 penalty notice, with the ultimate sanction of the vehicle being seized
on the spot.
Well, we hope that in the initial period there'll be leniency.
Yes,
this is a brand new system for everyone involved, both government and also ourselves as industry representatives. So we hope that there will be a certain level of
leniency to let people get used to the new reality. A new reality which, of course, was billed, and I don't expect you to get political, so we'll focus on the detail. The whole of the Brexit that's making this necessary was billed as a bonfire of red tape. It was going to cut down on regulations for hauliers and business people. So if I were driving a truck full of turnips to Turin today... I'm a fan of alliteration, Chris, I do apologise. But if I were driving a truckload of turnips to Turin today, what would I need by way of permits, and how easy would it be for me to enter Kent unmolested?
Well, today, as we remain in the transition period, we're still in the single market per se, so you would be able to drive that vehicle so long as the vehicle has the correct registration documents and the driver has the correct professional qualifications, and your vehicle is in a safe condition. You're free to go. So
this is in addition to permits and regulations and a safe vehicle. This is on top of what is currently required to
this will be what will be required from midnight and 1 second on the 1st of January next year.
And who will pay for it? Will I have to pay when I apply for a CAP, a KAP, a Kent Access Permit? Do we know yet?
No, it's definitely going to be free. Good. And we're at Logistics UK. We had a discussion with the officials this week, and they've reassured us that the scheme will be ready to go. Sadly, we want the testing to come forward in terms of timeframes. They are going to be launching it live in mid-December, and that doesn't give much time for industry to really understand it and put in place sort of internal business practices. Who is going to be the person going to filling in this portal? Who is going to be the person supplying the information? We need to know ourselves to get ourselves ready to be able to interact with the system from the 1st of January.
And when you talk about being told that it will work, and yet not being able to see any testing, that you're being asked to take it on trust, are you? That everything will be ready to kick off on the 1st of January 2021 at the moment?
We've seen the demo model, which is behind sort of their firewalls.
Yes.
There is going to be user testing throughout October and November before it is live.
Well, fingers crossed.
So fingers crossed that our members, we know what we need to do, so we're going to give all this information to the government, and we hope that they are able to quickly adapt, change it if necessary, because it needs to be as simple as possible. Exporting industry is going to be faced with many different new regimes next year in many different phases. For animal products, security, safety declarations, customs declarations, this is just one extra level of government interface we'll have to connect with. So it needs to work, and it needs to be very simple.
There's more than one port in Kent, but Dover, I think, sees about 16,000 trucks a day passing through to Calais at peak times. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yes. In general, both the Eurotunnel and Dover amount to about 200 billion of trade per year. So they are significant ports, and this is the reason why the government is trying to put in place this pre-check system. We don't want vehicles turning up that aren't ready at the border, because there's not enough space, as we saw yesterday, to keep all these vehicles coming down. So people who weren't familiar with yesterday, it was a terror alert that saw trucks being checked on an epic scale, and those checks caused tailbacks that were, frankly, astonishing, although relatively familiar to residents of the relevant parts of Kent. So that's what they're trying to avoid. Then forgive me if this question is stupid. I don't think it is, but one never knows. Why then would we also need all these lorry parks or Farage garages, as they are soon to be known? There may be delays at the border. There may be increased friction because people are not used to this new systems, that you may not have all the documentation you needed. If you're travelling with plant-based materials, you may need an extra stamp on a piece of paper.
Right.
This is where these things can happen. This is where the trucks can get ready to cross the border. We hope they're not going to be used as parking per se, as more of a centre where they can be administratively processed and get back on the road and get back on their journey as quickly as possible. We don't want them turning into long-term, lorry parks if it's not needed.
No. When we first started trying to get our heads around what might be on the horizon on this programme, and we spoke to hauliers and particularly to a courier who travels right across Europe, and he pointed at other borders between the EU and non-EU members. I think Turkey most obviously, actually, and he painted pictures that were frankly quite chilling. This is all being done, is it, these Kent access passes, in the hope of avoiding the sort of queues and tailbacks that are regularly found at the borders between EU countries and non-EU countries?
Sure. So imagine you're in Birmingham and you're selling something to Brussels.
Yes.
And you're selling widgets to Brussels. If you get a red response, it means that you haven't submitted all the paperwork necessary to demonstrate that you're ready to cross the border. So therefore, you're strongly advised not to start your journey, and therefore your vehicle will not be going down to Kent. It will remain in Birmingham, and therefore, hopefully, keeping the traffic flowing that is ready and does have the correct paperwork to cross the border. This essentially is what this whole system is designed to try and help with and alleviate any kind of excess traffic on the Kent roads. And
I suppose finally, how worried are people like you and indeed hauliers about what's on the immediate horizon? Because of course it's now the middle of September, and this kicks off, as you say, midnight plus 1 second on January the 1st.
Well, we maintain a constant engagement with government and the teams working on this. So we are doing our level best and the maximum effort to get this right first of all, it has to work. There is no contingency plan at the moment, although we're hoping that will be developed as well.
So watch this space.
Yes, but the good thing about the logistics industry is that we're very nimble. We're very adaptive to change. We managed to basically keep the country fed and watered during this COVID pandemic period, and all the vehicles remained on the road, and the drivers were able to keep doing their jobs and delivering. So we are very easy to adapt to a new regime.
You have to be.
Yeah,
I suppose, well, in that case, I shall ask you one more question, which is there any way at all in which these new regulations and requirements could be described or sold to the British public as a reduction in red tape for hauliers?
I wouldn't necessarily say there was a reduction in red tape. It just is reflecting the current situation or the future current situation between the UK and the EU, and what will be required to conduct business between the two entities. And that's what the logistics industry is there for, is to facilitate.
And that is all that you can do, is you have to work with the requirements and the regulations that are put in place. Chris Yarsley from Logistics UK, the head of road infrastructure, policy manager for road infrastructure. Many thanks indeed. We may catch up with the Road Haulage Association tomorrow. I think we ended up with the wrong phone number today or something, but nonetheless, there it is, an internal border in Kent, an internal UK border in Kent, albeit, and everybody hopes it goes swimmingly. This is the madness of the moment, isn't it? You sit there having voted for this, thinking that people like me want it to go badly. No. Want it to go well, or at least as unbadly as possible. I also think you should probably take responsibility for what you've done to our country.